I feel guilty about playing Pokemon games, and I'm not alone in this. Pokemon's been a controversial series since I was a kid, starting from that insecure middle school age when I was too insecure to even like this kid's game because it wasn't cool, and I wanted girls to like my Bieber cut ass, to the now hyper self-aware adult Pokemon fans either shitting on the performance issues, the way it looks, the new bad designs.
Like it's only an ice cream.
All complaints that are valid to some extent, but then upon agreeing with these mistakes, me and millions of other people still decide to buy these games and enjoy them. Is that a bad thing? Is my positive experience an inherently self-restraining process? Am I just trying to relive my childhood and not move forward? Are they fun? Is nostalgia bad? To answer these questions, I set off to ask friends, fellow YouTubers, and fellow Pokemon addicts to get their perspectives. Made a Google form with a bunch of questions and posted on my Twitter, @JackIsBoy, for people to answer targeted questions surrounding this series. And I asked, do you think the franchise has gone downhill? If yes, when and why? And got a varying array of answers. People feeling similar to me, being weary of the new games but still enjoying them, and many other people claimed that the games got lazy and at different points. If there was some universally agreed upon lazy insurgent point where Pokemon totally dropped the ball, I don't think I'd be making this video. But the fact that so many people commonly stated 3 separate points were the cause of the series' downfall shows this weird anti-nostalgia pessimistic attitude permeating through discourse of this franchise. Firstly, a lot of people were saying, the switch to 3D made it lazy. And I kind of think the opposite. They had to completely change the dimension they were making the games from. Of course, X and Y are gonna be a work in progress, but Omega Ruby proved they can work in the 3D space well, and kept improving their design philosophies there forward. It's growing pains. And when the series used to deal with your growing pains, like hard decisions, transitioning in your life, or life points, has growing pains of its own, it makes sense to feel some sort of resentment towards it. We went from the best looking 2D games with Black and White 2 to the first 3D games, which were kind of dull looking. Game Freak had 15 years to master what Pokemon games could look like on a 2D space on a small horizontal screen. How it played, the progression, it just doesn't completely translate to a 3D environment, and it showed. They tried to make that linear path design work, but many didn't find it engaging. So game after game, they made adjustments to the crazy open world games we have today. Secondly, Sun and Moon are when it got bad. Long tutorials and laggy, inconsistent frame rate. This is controversial, but I love Sun and Moon. They're some of my favorite Pokemon games. But seeing how controversial they are, I can try and take a more objective look. These are the first games which kind of demonstrated Game Freak's ambition versus the time they can allocate to fulfill that ambition, with each game getting bigger and more ambitious, with literally the same game release window, making an entire big 3D game in 2 years. There's gonna be bugs, lag, awful frame rate, every problem you can think of. The tutorial complaint isn't anything new. We've been stuck through Pokemon tutorials since we were little baby boys, but Sun and Moon uses its tutorial to grab you into the world of the game. It makes you take your time for the first hour and get immersed. And obviously that's not perfect. People obviously want control from the get-go, but me alongside countless others got engrossed into the story this way. The characters in this game are rich with actual character arcs. Lily, Guzma, Gladion, the mommy, all the central characters have a part to play in this overall engaging storyline. There are enough people like me to defend this game. That doesn't make this the one that unanimously killed the franchise, but the third game almost gets us there. Pokemon Sword and Shield is an unfinished mess. This one is the closest I ever got to quitting the Pokemon franchise, and continues to put me on the fence each time a game releases. But I still buy them anyways. This game was the start of the most noticeable flaws. Yet again, a big switch from 3DS to Nintendo's Switch, with the same game development cycle. It requires so much more time to develop a game of this magnitude. The game is literally unfinished. After the 5th gym, they didn't even have time to finish the towns. There's like the 7th gym town, which is just a straight line. They're just empty areas with no gym puzzles. It is completely different from the norm with the first attempt at an open world with the wild area. which is an ugly, laggy mess, which I spent a lot of time in. Even with all these flaws in mind, it became one of the highest selling Pokemon games of all time. And what does that say about us? I bought it. And I've been having these weird Pokemon feelings since Sword and Shield came out, and I accepted this insecure Pokemon role into my personality. Haha, I know these games kind of suck, but I love them. This sort of truncated truth to get my point across and appeal to most common people without further explanation to my actual opinions. And I'm not alone in this. I've seen more people than ever acknowledging the downfalls of this latest Pokemon game, Scarface and Viagra or whatever they're called. And they sold 10 million copies in 3 days, being Nintendo's biggest game launch ever. There was this inherent longing for Pokemon that people have, this implied sense of fun that was cemented into us since childhood, year after year. There's a reason they started selling us these games during the holiday season. From the New York Times article, What is Nostalgia Good For? Quite a bit, research shows. It stated, investigated in southern China by Xingzhu Zhao of the Sun Yat-sen University. By tracking students over the course of a month, she and colleagues found that feelings of nostalgia were more common on cold days. They are literally selling us these games during the coldest time of the year, when we remember getting the Pokemon games as kids, to target our nostalgia directly when it hits. And I'm not saying that Game Freak is an evil company trying to target our best interests by selling us things during the time people are most lonely and looking for warmth, because if that were true, then every company on the planet would be evil. Moreover, I had rejected my nostalgia. I always longed for nostalgia, but saw it as a bad thing, something that was an indulgence. And looking back to that Google form, the question that struck the most with fans was the last one I posed. Why do you think people keep playing? And the most common response I got was nostalgia. This weird term that I think has been undersold and discredited by so many people, me included, because it's oversaturated our culture as content consumers. 80s nostalgia, 90s nostalgia, Ready Player One. It's thrown at our faces so often because these media companies know we inherently gravitate towards it. So many people see it as an inherently bad thing, when it literally gives us warmth. Nostalgia has been shown to counteract loneliness, boredom, and anxiety. It makes people more generous to strangers and more tolerant of outsiders. On cold days or in cold rooms, people use nostalgia to literally feel warmer. Again, from the New York Times. There's a whole nostalgia group of researchers at the University of Southampton who've sunk copious amounts of time into understanding nostalgia and how this chemical affects our minds, moods, feelings, and productivity. And the research is overwhelmingly positive. And once Pokemon started releasing these games worldwide at the same time, so many people who started playing these games in the late 90s were becoming adults, trying to recapture the enjoyment they had as kids. And right as they do, oh, a new monster catching game coming November 18th, right in time for winter. This kind of negative nostalgia that I and a lot of people were scared of is called comparative nostalgia. This is a type of nostalgia when you compare your past self and how you feel with how you are and feel now. Feelings of nostalgia are more hyperactive when lonely, sad, and depressed. So if you take these natural memories of you feeling happy doing a certain activity and compare it to how you're feeling sad in the moment doing the same activity, it becomes more of a longing to the past rather than a reflection and overall meditation on yourself. But if you can separate yourself from that non-existent past self, that is when you can actually experience the benefits of nostalgia. The concept of motivation has a significant relationship with nostalgia. In the field of psychology, Jaik, Lunsen, Wilshite, and Sidikaz found that nostalgia was positively associated with employees' intrinsic motivation. There was literal evidence of remembering fond memories and being a better person. And what does that mean for the future of this series? We're talking about the past here, but are they still fun now? Past all the nostalgia? Pokemon Legends Arceus revitalized a big part of the franchise, took a rotten, stale formula that we're all still addicted to and flipped it on its head, giving us this modern take on Pokemon. It's like making Cocaine 2, being able to play this new Pokemon game at any pace, because you can throw Pokeballs outside of battle to catch Pokemon, the introduction of Ride Pokemon, where you can instantly flip between a fucking Stantler and a sexy flying bird and fly in the fucking sky. Battles were also way faster, being over in usually 1 one or two moves, and as a person who treats most Pokemon battles like a press A simulator, all these changes benefited my experience tremendously. It felt like the progression of the game was entirely dictated by how you wanted to play it. You could take your time and explore the new open world landscapes, and do crazy trick shot Pokeball throws while flipping through all the weird Pokemon you can ride, almost letting you play the game however you wanted. Flash forward to Scarlet and Violet, which took a lot from Arceus but combined it with the typical Pokemon formula to create one of the most engaging Pokemon experiences I've ever played. Even though I was disappointed you couldn't catch the Pokemon outside of battle, and that battles were the same as the previous titles, the introduction of out of battle battles, where you just throw your Pokemon into an unsuspecting group of shitty animals to kill them all for sweet XP, is amazing. Kind of fucked up. This feature helps propel the momentum and fun of the game forward. Instead of getting bored and stuck at a certain route filled with trainer after trainer, fucking Zubat after Zubat, you can basically just decide from the get-go, I'm just not gonna fight any trainers at all and throw my gay duck at a group of stupid Lechonks and harvest their corpses. They used the open world areas from Arceus and took it to another level. Everything is open. The region of Paldea is so interesting, with such interesting landscapes, towns, beaches, dunes, caves. Everything is so unique in comparison to other Pokemon games. Nevertheless, this new Zelda-inspired open world fits perfectly into the typical Pokemon formula, making these 3 branching paths instead of the typical 8 gym badge structure. There's the new social aspect, where you and up to 3 friends can play the game at the same time in the same world. Such a simple concept, but it made this lone Pokemon journey so much more fun. Experiencing all the new Pokemon, story revelations, glitches, everything became a social aspect for me. That it felt like I was back in the 5th grade, playing Pokemon Platinum in my basement, battling my friends with my hacked level 100 shiny Mewtwo. And that social aspect has always been a key factor too, not just with nostalgic memories like mine and many others share, but with the rise of Pokemon Go. Game Freak realized that social pressure is powerful and peer pressure just works. So they made the most crack-inducing Pokemon experience for Pokemon addicts like myself, and were like, it's fine. Your friends are doing it too. Play the goddamn game and spend $90. And it's kind of like if a crackhead designed the game with how it looks and plays. Like, these games keep coming and selling better and better now that they're on Nintendo's biggest console ever. But the division keeps getting bigger. I have so many friends that have played Sword and Shield or Sun and Moon that fell off, denouncing Pokemon and shitting on the fans, saying they only play it for nostalgia, using that negative comparative nostalgia, when there is a beautiful middle ground we can reach as a global fandom, where we can look at what other people enjoy out of something without seeing an ugly screen cap online and immediately dismissing anyone who sees any good in it. But as media grows bigger and bigger, and people become even more divided with what they consume, it becomes even harder to reach a middle ground, especially with the biggest media franchise ever. I love Pokemon. Ever since Ash sacrificed himself for that jaundice-colored rodent, I almost never looked back. But in this self-reflecting, mental health-aware age we're living in, it becomes harder and harder to just enjoy something without reservation, without critique, without caveats. The mantras echoed through the theme songs. I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. I'm gonna be the very best because all I've gotta do is believe in me. I'm unbeatable. Instilled this sense of drive and motivation within us as kids. These childhood ideas that we take for granted. Believing in yourself, striving to be the best. These are the ideas we should be nostalgic for when playing these games or watching the show or looking at your fucking Miltank plushie. Bruh. These feelings of striving to be the best, going for broke, putting something out there, releasing unfinished games when under this giant umbrella corporation, and yet still trying out these new ideas, even though there was no way in hell you would make a cohesive game without glitches, without the entire internet making fun of you. Imperfect, but ambitious and familiar. It's around these early times of the year I get to reflect on who I was, and playing a Pokemon game helps bring out that nostalgia in a good way. and helps me actualize ideas in my head and make moves going forward. So yeah, I'm Stockholm Syndromed into this series being a part of my life. Being aware of targeted release windows and various marketing gimmicks to directly attack my nostalgia. But that targeting benefits both me and the company. They get the sales and I get to use that comfort from playing the games to transition to new horizons. Instead of staying the same Sword and Shield hater saying that Vanillite sucks. Like, he's kind of cute, bro. He's just a little ice cream boy. Has Pokemon changed since you were a kid? Obviously, it's over 20 years old. But so have you, you old fuck.
Pikachu was my very first Pokemon.